Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Monday, July 14th at 11:39 a.m. Starting out with a strange chart for what we typically look at. We're looking at Japan right now. The reason I bring this up is a couple of posts I made this morning, and I want to give a little bit of context. So, markets look good compared to what people would think of as bad. So, what does that even mean? So, the first step to being able to navigate markets is to understand what all this shit means. So, the whole system is in good part about credit, the concept of credit. Now, clearly, there's other ways to state the word credit. Printing? Who's printing? These are topics we've discussed. But this is Japan's long end, their 30-year JGB. And it's popular on social media right now because it's blowing out to all-time highs. So basically, the system is getting stressed. It's really like a rubber band, and it's getting pulled. And at some point, either it snaps or it contracts. So we're at that part of the system where everyone's talking about M2, global M2, and it's going through the roof. They're talking about these JGBs selling off, which is um, affecting currency supply vis-a-vis various knock-on effects and influences throughout the market. This is obviously a collateral, and this plays a role in the global money printing process, the global credit process. Okay, so this morning I mentioned stuff like this. Monthly guppies display clearly when a discount is available. I just wanted to clarify these statements along with these charts, where we are. People got to get a sense of where we are, understand how to navigate where we are. So back in 2022, there was a discount heading into 2023. And really, Bitcoin bottomed at the end of 2022. So if you're buying Bitcoin now at $120,000, you're late AF. What does that mean? Does it mean buy or don't buy? It's a completely separate question. The statement is still valid. Not buying at a discount. Discount was $16,000 when it was at the bottom of the guppies. Same thing here back in March of 2020. You were at the bottom of the guppies. You're at a premium right now, all time high. At the top, above the guppies, this is setting the new precedent, setting the new stage. Does this mean buy or don't buy? That's a separate question. Let's talk about that one for a second. If you buy now, the odds are at some point the price of Bitcoin is going to go below $120,000. That's just based on the fact that JGBs are doing what they're doing and the rubber band is stretching. And at some point, it contracts because credit breaks. The system breaks. It's not designed to break. The whole point is the Fed was introduced over 100 years ago in order to manage that credit, which is in good part discussed in terms of the business cycle. The businesses borrow credit, expand, 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 and then everything contracts, contracts, contracts. And you get the oscillation, the sinusoidal oscillation, the ups and the downs. And you got plenty of charts that tell that story. What is a decent statement that could be said about this chart? If you bought Bitcoin at $45,000, which is below the guppies, do you give a shit if Bitcoin crashes to $60,000 from here? Be a 50% crash. Probably in some regard, because you could have sold it at 120 and bought it at 60, but that's not investing, that's trading. That's not adhering to my rules. The three rules. Rule number one, own more assets. There's no sell in that equation. So the reason I've told this story thus far is because I wanted to clarify this statement. You don't have to sell things if you buy, well, clearly there's a typo there, buy the right things at the right prices, avoid premiums. So this is kind of why we've been talking on this stream for years, If you're new to the stream, welcome. You're late. Just being honest. Can't, can't not be honest. Because we've been talking about this since 21. When did we start our stream? We were here in 2022 when Bitcoin was at 16 and change $1,000. I'm sure those weren't the most upbeat of streams if we look back on this YouTube channel and look at those particular streams for those particular dates. So if you bought Bitcoin at 16K, if you bought Bitcoin at 3K, if you bought Bitcoin at the 200s, which was down here, because that wasn't even below the guppies, I would say those are outliers and trying to get a sense of what is a discount versus what is a premium with regard to these long-term moving averages. Guppies are a long-term set of moving averages because prior to 16 was a different world, a different financial reality for these systems because post 2019, these are emerging markets. This is a global phenomena. Bitcoin is a global collateral. It has cash like properties, collateralizable money like properties. Okay, so the point is things are not at discount right now. And if you're buying Bitcoin or you're buying most anything, the odds are you should be selling. Otherwise, at some point, it's going to become priced less than the current purchase price. So unless you bought at an appropriate discount, what's an appropriate discount? Bitcoin at 2022, beginning of 2023, probably like um, 20 to 40,000. If you got that, that's crazy. If you got 40 to 50, those are nice numbers. And just that's based on moving average. Look at the guppy trend. If you got 40 to 50, you probably got a decent price here at the bottom of the guppies, albeit depending on deviation and how far that rubber band snaps back, you probably see anywhere deviated to the downside 30 to 40. And that's just reading off this silly little chart, a circle that is randomly drawn. But that's based on what occurred. Look at what occurred. Look what we lived through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. Ladies and gentlemen, who did not experience that period of time. That's a very painful 8 months. Now, folks right now today are scrambling, especially new folks. What do I buy? And panicking, bullish panicking, which we all know that feeling from years past. But that was 8 months of bearish panicking. That was a that was a trial. So that's where you learn what you're capable of. And I would encourage everyone to intentionally experience that kind of market. So pick something, and you got to watch that depreciation because there's nothing like watching that bear market and figuring out how to do little to nothing. And that's really when the rules came about at the beginning of 2022 is when the rules of March, April, May, maybe June of 2022-ish is when at least the first rule and the second rule. No, I think all three rules. Wait, the third rule came along later, so it was the first and the third rule. And yeah, I know. There's obviously two rules, one and two. Own more assets and fuck you, pay me. But then knowing the stop buying assets moved fuck you, pay me to rule number three and got inserted as rule number two. So that's probably mid 2022, just as we started to talk about business structure and how to take care of things from a more strategic perspective. That was what we did in 2022. A heck of a ride. Has it really been 3.5 years since then? I guess so. So things are not at a discount, and 20 something people, 28%, are scrambling to figure out what to buy now. Meanwhile, cheap prices were in 2024 for the crypto fintech space, the credit space, the five businesses of crypto. Your cheapest prices, your discounts were available at the end of 2024, approximately November of 2024. Took about two and change years for the crypto fintech space to bottom as compared to Bitcoin. That's just the way it is. And that's something to keep mind of going forward. That does that repeat? Probably, but I think the story is different. Just as we clearly tell the story that post 2019 is a different world, there's an actual emerging market now. That could very well influence the way things play out in subsequent cycles. Interesting stuff. This is just some old social media stuff. Everyone's like, oh, the next Solana. What is the next coin to go up 10,000%? Everyone wants to know what's next. No, that's not how it works. You want it to be in the things before they went up, and you want to be in the biggest of things. When you, a stupid watch, you buy a Casio watch for 20 bucks, or you buy a Rolex for $10,000. Like, oh, I'm going to buy this brand new watch. Maybe it's going to become the next Rolex. That's clearly a bad example because the watch brands don't really change and like that. Like a new company becomes more popular than Rolex, but to some degree that occurs in equities. But that's a shitty way to look at markets. It's like probably Berkshire Hathaway stock at $700,000 a share. If you could afford it, those are good buys. You buy the premium brand name assets. You don't buy the cheap shit expecting it to go up. You buy the Solana when it's cheap. You buy the Rolex when it's cheap. You buy things when they're cheap. You buy good stuff, the stuff that's popular when they're cheap, because when they're already popular, and that momentum reprices them back to um, reasonable valuations. That's the whole point of looking at charts like this. Bitcoin's at a discount, it gets repriced back above the guppies to reasonable pricing, to fair market pricing. That's why below the guppies is a discount. It's mispriced to the downside. And it's not like, oh, what's the next Bitcoin? We already went through that. That was 2016, 2017. That's Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV. We already went through what's the next Bitcoin, and we already realized it's a stupid conversation. And a lot of people lost a lot of money trying to figure out what the next Bitcoin is. And that's not the way we look at markets, what the next big thing is. This is the next big thing. Bitcoin's the next big thing, but it's not an investment. It's a cash-like instrument. Investments conform with rule number 3. Fuck you, pay me. So what are the next big investments? That's what we've been discussing for the last years. Anywho, market's been nice, up at 122-ish, curve at 67 right about now. Is at 68, 69 briefly, spell over 5. There's your cash flow, probably the best, aside from um, uh, resupply. They're one of they are the staple cash flow. They really are. Aerodrome back above 80 cents. Velodrome back above at least 5,000. That's nice to see. 5 cents, that is. Um, wow. DXY pushed above 98 just over the last half hour. All right. So my eye has been on this morning, a little macro, then we'll get to the commentary. 10-year is up 0.5% today, which is relatively small. The question is, how much does that bump move? Does it bump move? Or does move continue to roll over? So this is a monthly candle. Um, we're only halfway through the month, And we've had wicks this low. We've had wicks this low into 82.43. So that's why you want to look at the 10-year, the nice right down the middle of the yield curve, benchmark interest rate. Um, let's see if this rolls over. I mean, in some regard, Bitcoin and the crypto markets are forward looking because people are speculating that collateral volatility does roll over and that allows the rubber band to expand. And then Japan blows up or something next year, and you find yourself in this situation where the red circle seems to be a target, which is a significant deviation below the guppies. Now, for instance, back in 2022, the bottom of the guppies was about 21,000 and it bottomed at 15. It's 25% plus, greater than 25%. More, 28, what, 30, 25 to 30%, let's say. That's a heck of a deviation for 8 months. Geez, that was a painful period of time. So how bad do things blow up next time? I don't know. You could put this anywhere. I'm not drawing this like I'm a magician or a prognosticator. The point is, when things blow up and you see a deviation below the guppies, there's your damn discount. So, anywho, if you're on X or on YouTube, please feel welcome to ask any questions. For the last several years, I've been more than happy to answer anything on your mind. Joel Reynolds, good morning. Always a pleasure. Arrow, DCA, Killis in the house, Gaming Larry. Hey, Captain. I'm making my final purchases in crypto that I'll likely hold for years. Can't decide between target buying Cleve or getting more spread out piece of the pie with ALD. I have no capacity to answer that question. You know the deal. We will only know in hindsight, albeit at least with Cleve, you have um, you're already conforming with rule number 3. It's cash flow positive. So ALD is not yet. It's discussed that ALD will control in good part Cleve governance. So doesn't currently. There's a difference between speculative and established. Cleve currently is established to control significant, where it is the dominant owner of, is the largest owner of vote locked CDX. Um, so these are hard choices. I opted for Cleve. I bought 2.5% of Cleve voting power, which means I could pretty much pass a Cleaver vote by myself, which is absolutely insane to think that I was able to. Folks, everyone out there who said I'm allowed to acquire that. I had the capital and like, hey, Captain, here, go for it. Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. You let me get 2.5% of Cleaver voting. That's insane. I mean, we look back in like 5, 10 years from now, and curve governance is a global force, and convex controls a good part, if not the strongest influence on curve governance. And then Cleaver comes along and has a dominant influence on convex governance. Oh, yeah, that's the kind of thing that's desirable to own speculatively. Now, obviously, yeah, I know folks that have chosen ALD over CLEV. It's a subjective choice, albeit with Cleaver, at least it pays now, um, and that's in good part of my rules. That's rule number 3. It pays now. How much does it pay now? And what is it paying now? 23% paid in CVX tokens, no less. It's not even paid in anything like stable coins or anything. It's Cleaver, which is a convex derivative of sorts, and it pays you in CVX tokens, which is pretty wild. So I got a little bit of a stack building there. That's cool. Uh, that's cool. I'm not definitely not complaining about it. This is a long time. This is like 6 months. More. When did I buy my Cleve stack? I've just never claimed this at all. Anywho, I like this position. This is one of those positions that's not like that influences cash flow significantly, part of the portfolio, but you're like, all right, this pays great. And this is one of those powerful positions. Like you understand how the system works, and you're like, "Oh, this is that ace up your sleeve. This is that thing that most people don't understand at all." So my 2 cents in that regard. That's kind of like a liquidity, and and the Chud man, Agent Chud's been talking about the liquidity a lot. A few people, he gets it. And when you could own 1+% of supply, and in my instance, 2.5% of Cleve for a relatively cheap price, there's literally no liquidity. I don't even know how you could buy this in decent numbers. You pay a big premium with slippage because the supply just isn't available. Complicated asset to get involved with. At least with liquidity, you have more liquidity. Morning, Cap. Much a pleasure. Much a pleasure. A Smith. I don't have questions about coins today, as essentially all have pumped to X since the last time I asked, except for RSUP. Well, RSUP has some traction to reestablish, but you, you're off the ground. We knew this was coming. We knew the portfolio goes down, the portfolio goes up. The portfolio is going to reprice because this market is not like prior to 2019. It's going to be monetized because you literally have the United States government creating legislation for this market to be monetized. You can't make this shit up. At least for the entirety of 2025, the writing has been on the wall. They have clearly stated they're going to price the everything up. Now we've speculated that that was the case in 22, 23, and 24, and he could have gotten the best discounts possible heading into election season last year, about November of 2024. And then in 25, that was it. Market established itself. Everyone started to recognize it. And now you literally have Congress creating laws around it. You can't make this timeline up. No. Coming off of Gensler, where we are now is just some regards unimaginable, but we are here. So cheers to doing what you had to do to get to where we are now. And now there's little to nothing to do. And that was the whole thing. I think we originally stated that very aggressively back in 22-ish. Next cycle, we're going to have nothing to do but talk about why things are doing what they're doing and how what we chose years ago is ultimately getting monetized because there's only 5 businesses in crypto. There's only so many investable um, businesses, and everything else is bullshit. So, and we had to choose because you can't own everything. Needed to make sure the position size were proper, had to concentrate effectively, and needed to invalidate potentially decent investments. But if you couldn't get the position size right, concentrate. And I'm sure we have lessons we've learned. Probably could have bought more Arrow over the last year. Probably could have waited for a cheaper price on Velo. Probably could have done many things. And all of these will be part of our lessons and our trials and tribulations and the stories we tell in the years to come. Good stuff. Good morning, Captain from New England, as in up north in the U.S. I'm a New Yorker. I live in Florida, and everyone's like, dude, you from New York the way you talk. And I'm like, yep, New York. What's up? I remember the good old days. I like New England a lot. I used to, during the winters, especially with my father, may he rest in peace, we used to drive to Vermont a lot. Mount Snow, Killington, stuff like that, Stratton. So I miss New England. the seasons. Now I really no living in Florida. I'm like now I understand what the snowbirds do and why they come to Florida during the winter, during the summer in the temperate, deciduous area of the country. It's beautiful. It's very nice in New England during the summer. Then it gets cold. And then in the winter in Florida, in the winter when it's 0 degrees in New York, it's literally 65 and no humidity. And you walk outside in a pair of shorts and no shirt. You sit in the backyard, get some sun, and it's beautiful during the winter in Florida. That's the winter in Florida. Anywho, I rant and ramble and digress. Stablecoins like USDC are like lightning compared to the slog of automated clearinghouse transfers. Yes, now you're talking the right comparison. Will Circle Internet Group be a good long-term hold? I don't consider it investable. How much does it pay you of their cash flow? I'd rather invest in USDC and get what risk-free rate of return, 5% or whatever the hell they're paying nowadays. They do that vis-a-vis the Coinbase platform, but that's not much of a rate of return. You could get that, but the market's ripping. I don't know. I don't have hard. Uh, Cash isn't an investment. Cash is to be used. So I don't have a valuable opinion of the Circle Boomer meme coin because it doesn't pay. It's not like it's paying 20%. And if anything, it's not at a discount. It's at a premium. Was it up 10x off IPO? So it has all the criteria for something that I would never buy. My 2 cents. Now, I like the USDC stablecoin because it's a redeemable stablecoin. It's a payment currency. And that's different than a tether. And that's different than crypto euro dollars because it's an off ramp and on ramp. I don't know. For the long term folks, capital only comes out of crypto. So it's a valuable off ramp. And you don't even have to go through the exchanges. You use stuff like Spritz Finance, and you just throw them some USDC, throw it on a debit card, and you can manage your finances using USDC. So it's a great cash to have. Hope that helps. Do you think time-wise this cycle will work the same as others, also go crazy for a few months, then it all pukes? It's always different. It's not different in that some shit's going to blow up. It's different in that we're post 2020, which means they can't afford a recession. They won't be able to nominally service their expense requirements, and this is just the U.S. government. And in some regard, the U.S. government's dependent on the global economy because all currencies are related vis-a-vis the forex markets. So it's past the point of no return where Besant knows. He says you got to grow your way out of it. And that's what a lot of the good economists have said for quite some time. It's the folks that we follow. You need the inflation. I mean, this is what Luke Gromen talks about. It's like run this thing at like 10, 15% inflation, CPI, and grow your way out of this debt. You got to get your debt to GDP down, or interest expense to GDP down to like what 70 or 80 is something that he was talking about, and you nominally grow your way out of the debt burden. So it's very different. It's the same in that the rubber band is expanding as we started the stream talking about Japan. At some point, some shit breaks, and then you got discounts. There's always going to be a discount because that's the way. Not even humanity. It's the way existence, nature, physics works. Cycles will cycle, ladies and gentlemen. We've said that statement for quite some years at this point. So Bitcoin's at a premium. At some point, it's at a discount, and it will go up and down and up and down. And at some point, social civility is financed. The U.S. will always be able to pay its interest expense. The checks from the U.S. Treasury will always be cashable. and follow the rules. You don't have to deviate. Why does buy more assets work? Buy more assets over time. Rule number two, make sure you're buying them at a discount. Get them as cheap as possible. And then you hit this criteria. You don't have to sell things if you buy them at the right price, especially if they conform with rule number three, fuck you, pay me. And considering everyone's like the bear case, yeah, you don't bet on the end of the world. Either they have control and they avoid society from collapsing, or it's guns and ammo and butter and canned tuna. And in which case, it doesn't matter what the hell you own. So that's why the three rules are all that matter, and everything else is noise. My man. What are your thoughts on Phantom's wallet integration with Hyperliquid, order book style DEXs? No interest. There's nothing investable there. What pays? I mean, Hype pays. Fine. Hyperliquid pays. But I don't own perp dexes. I never own uh, um, GMX. Hmm. Fortunately, with their recent V1 exploit, but never owned perp dex. I don't care about gambling. That's the whole thing. Everyone's doesn't really understand what this crypto thing is, these emerging markets, and because they don't understand what currency is, they don't understand what dollars are, they don't understand the difference between dollars and money, currency and money. They don't understand the way credit works. And I think it's my opinion that these are pretty much established emerging markets at this point that have a capacity to contribute meaningfully to the global credit system and the global money creation process. So I'd rather own those businesses. They're much bigger than perp dexes. It's just so small, the concept of gambling. Big business, but it's small compared to the concept of foreign exchange, credit, derivatives, liquidity financing, and liability printing. All right, skip the derivatives because the perp dexes kind of fall into that particular business. I don't really own anything that hits that one of the five businesses. I prefer foreign exchange credit, liquidity financing, and liability printing. Hope that clarifies my sentiment in that regard. It's a legit business, though. Gambling's big business. Sir Joe, President, accounted for. Sir, yes, sir. Good morning, Cab. How you soon? How's everyone doing? Yams in the house. Always a pleasure, guys. I still don't understand Cleve, but hope it does great. I'm just happy. Yeah, FX is great. That's Aladdin Dow's dollar suite of products or derivatives, collateral and cash derivatives. Because it's also stable coins, but also has your leveraged Ethereum and Bitcoin products, which in turn creates the cash, the stable products, the currency units, stable coins. So it's good exposure. You can't own everything. Uh, Cleave is an expression of governance control. Now, governance control doesn't necessarily make money, albeit it does pay 20, 30% denominated in CVX. So that's pretty interesting. But its real allure, its potential is I have a capacity to have significant influence on curve governance vis-a-vis Cleaver's dominant control over convex. So that I could significantly influence those votes vis-a-vis Cleaver. Whether that's valuable or not in the future, explicitly is one story, or implicitly is another story. We'll only know in time. So it's speculative in that regard. But it's not speculative that it pays good convex cash flow, which is cool. I mean, listen, I bought Cleaver, whatever the hell I bought it for. I think it was like 35 grand. Look, it's paid almost 1400 CVX. If CVX goes to the big numbers like folks are talking about, 10, 20x on the money, back to $40, that's cool. This pays for itself on basis. That's 100% on basis. So it's not really 24% because that 24% is based on the performance of the convex asset. Now, bear in mind, I'm also longing convex here. If you are not claiming, you are inherently longing that particular asset. And note, if you don't claim, you're not taking dominion of it. You're not acquiring the asset. That plays into accounting. Still, DCA is always good. Listen, that's why there's no simple way to handle capital management. For some people, under different circumstances, people do things that are the opposite or different than other people under similar circumstances. In theory, just DCA for the next 5 years, that's a cool theory. That's a cool idea to execute. You make you make 4 grand a month in revenue and from working, and you're buying $500 a month worth of stuff. Check back in 2030, and you're just accumulating $500 a month worth of stuff. Rule number one: buy more assets, own more assets. So it's dollar cost average. And over time, in 2030, that should prove interesting. Some stuff you're going to buy at a premium, some stuff you're going to buy at a discount over the next 5 years. So that's my sense on DCA. When all the grown ass men were panicking, shake my head. Honestly, embarrassing for you, man. Oh, yeah. As much as it's obvious to us, we're a small little group. 196 people on the stream. This is a small community. It's a microscopic community that has access to this perspective that I offer. It is what it is. Either you got a capacity to think outside the box and be different than other people. You just don't. This is why the majority don't succeed. The majority fail. It's only the minority that succeed. And that will always be the case. That's unfortunate. And that's why we have education institutions. And nowadays with social media, people that offer that voice, that conversation. But the majority will never listen. The majority will always just fail. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You could say, this conversation will change everything. Are Would most people listening right now agree, at least the veterans, that this conversation did change everything? This is a very different way to look at markets, what we discuss. You could scream that from your soapbox. People won't listen. It is what it is. It's the nature of humanity. Captain, would you consider yourself a word cell or shape rotator? What do you mean, man? What is this complicated language you're speaking of? What's a word cell? Better not be porn related. What is this? Oh, okay. It's definitely not porn related. Okay. Slang term often used in all argument to discuss technology. Culture describes someone. I just speak and I don't stop speaking. My wife says I like to hear myself talk. Um, I'm not really that good at mathematics. I trained in electrical engineering, spatial reasoning. I'm a rational person, thus Captain Rational. You know, that my social media presence did not start as Captain Rational. I think it was Noah Street Bets or some shit back in 2020 when Wall Street Bets was popular. But it turns out I was always rational. So this is really a manifestation of something I've always seen myself as. I've done some interesting things in college, and I remember modeling. And I had this idea in college, which was an entrepreneurial project. And it was based on a model, which is talking about something in terms of something else to understand it better. That's exactly what we do with our finance. That's exactly why we talk about crypto as an emerging market. That's why we have the 5 businesses of crypto, because a DEX, but it's not a DEX. It's not a freaking DEX. It's a foreign exchange, which is an actual banking business. I saw what was and compared it to something that is. And that's banking. All of this is banking products and services, the concept of credit. It led me to the concept of the Eurodollar market, understanding what are dollars, what are dollar liabilities, how do banks print money, how does credit print money, how does all this work? So I was just always a rational person. Put two and two together, compare things that may seem dissimilar, and you're like, oh shit, they're kind of the same. Understand things in terms of something else. And was that relational? Space. So maybe not space relational reasoning. I'm able to reason how things relate to one another and understand one thing in terms of another. Thank you. I take your post as a compliment. Appreciate it. So a nice take on Twitter. Wait at least 3 years before investing in a protocol. Wait for a defined product market fit. Seems to make a lot of sense. Decrease risk while not necessarily decreasing rewards. True. The best time to buy Curve was not in 2020 or 2021. It was in November of 2024, 3 years later, 3+ years later, for what it's worth. So I think that's quite a reasonable statement. John, Cap, just a heads up, you probably got the Black Hole airdrop as an Arrow and Thana and pretty much everything that they're airdropping to. Let's take a look. Let's see. Did, where they drop to? Liquidity? No. Box? Vote? Where do you get the airdrop? Brand kit, docs, Genesis, bridge. Where's my airdrop? My black hole airdrop. We are live, having a fun weekend. Did they not drop it yet? I appreciate that you're live, black. Where's the airdrop? Because I'm not gonna capitalize. I'll lock it. For better or for worse. Like, I don't even keep it up anymore. Jesus, Sonium, that's dead. I don't even have it up anymore. What was that other thing on that other protocol on Sonic? Not Shadow, the other one that was around for 5 minutes. It's dead. All dead. I don't know. I don't know where the airdrop is. Anywho, but that's a heads up. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is not normal. It's a great statement. It's not normal. It's all broken. The whole system's going to fail. And that's the whole point. These are real statements. It's all screwed. But that has nothing to do with the rules. There's a reason the rules are so powerful because that's noise that the system is going to fail. Because if the system fails, none of it matters anyway. It means you got to have a shotgun for each your wife and your kids to protect themselves because people are going to try and break into your house because there's no food in the supermarket and the ATM machine doesn't print cash and the banks aren't open, so everyone's killing each other to survive. It's a post-apocalyptic scenario. It doesn't matter. You don't invest in the end of the world. You can hedge your bets. So how do you hedge all these investments that we do? Guns and butter and ammo and canned food. Okay? So anyway, so this isn't normal. But everyone sees that, oh, the system's going to crash. Okay, so there's your rules. You buy when things are at a discount. At some point, the government finances social civility. So you buy. Number one, and that's it. That's the only rule. Buy things when they're at a discount because nothing else matters. Will Tom Lee's discover curve at some point? I don't know. It's a decent question, though. I think it needs to be more expensive. People will discover curve when it's at 10, 20, $30. I mean, look at Bitcoin. The more expensive these things get, the more discoverable they are. People mistakenly think that the cheapest things are the best things. There's, there's something the meaningful that comes along with a premium. Um, Trust, PMF, product market fit, and other things. Traction, risk adjusted, some proof that there's lendiness. And it's just like I said, the best time to buy curve is probably like November of 2024. And psychopaths like me were buying it in 2020, 21, and all the way until 24, which worked out okay. And I'm quite satisfied with the way things worked out. But damn, if I took all my 22, 23 and waited until November of 2024, I'd have a much larger bag. But nobody does these things perfectly. So anyway, I digress. I guess Tom Lee, semantics, but Tom Lee, yes. I think it's after Epoch started Wednesday. All right, I'll take a peek. It's gonna pay nothing. It's not like I'm getting like a 50 grand airdrop. So whatever. Very interested for your take. Interest rates over the next year seems a lot of real estate markets across the world can't hold with the current rates. Yeah, I don't know who's going to buy government debt unless they're paying a higher interest rate. So that's the whole point. It's going to be weird. Everything is different. And what's my sentiment in that regard is stuff like this. Go out to the 6 month on US 10-year. Look, back in 1941, we were at less than 2%. Up, up, 15%, down, broke the trend, up. All right, so there's some, I mean, literally, this is the first break to the upside since the 1980s. So here's your structure. Higher interest rates are coming. Whether the system can handle it, I'm sure it can't. I'm sure they will finagle it and massage it to make the system handle it. If they need to create a new dollar, they do. What does that even mean? Post 1971 compared to prior, there's a different dollar when gold certificates and dollar certificates and liabilities of the Fed and versus liabilities of the Treasury. Okay, so they have a capacity to change money, change the dollar. Everyone's like, ooh, the dollar, but the dollar was different, a different product prior to 1971, and they can make a new product. All it's a money's made up, fake. It's all a system of control. Money is a means, what I used to say, money is a means of financing social civility, incentivizing labor, and the one that people just don't get it. It's how you ration natural resources. You only have X amount of chicken, let's say, and the price is allows people that can afford it to buy it. If every single person had access to one chicken per day, what is what does that do to available supply? So the price is what rations the availability of the natural resources. Money isn't what people think it is. Incentivize labor, finance social civility, and ration natural resources. That's what dollars are. And everyone opts into the system. Good old matrix analogy. Even at a mere subconscious level, they accept the programming. And welcome to modern day society. Hope that helps, ladies and gentlemen. Monday, July 14th, 12:28 p.m. I thank you all for joining me today. 204 people made it to the end of the stream and are all now a little bit more rational because of it. I wish you all a good one. Keep calm. To be an investor, there's no adrenaline. If you have adrenaline, you got to step away. There should be no adrenaline. There should be cold, hard, calculated, methodical, boring. Watching grass grow, not chasing the dragon. So, food for thought. Hope it all helps. I will see you guys and gals later this week. Until then.